Can you name a species of ant without the letter A in the name? Hit me up in the comments. Welcome back, I am the Colonialist, and this is the ultimate care guide to raising Messors, a species of harvester ants. This is probably one of the most kept species across the UK and Europe amongst the widest members of the community. Messor Barbarus were first introduced to the community through the Uncle Milton's ant farms in the late 50s and early 60s when they came over to Europe after their success in America with the Pogonomyrmex. This particular queen, I happened to pick her up from Ants Davey, one of my popular used retail shops. I decided originally not to film the queen until she had her first worker, and then again I didn't film the queen until a couple of months later where she has up to 10 to 15 nanitics. What I want to emphasize is one of the key parts of raising this species is to disturb them as little as possible. Minimal, they need to be disturbed once every 14 days. If you can, stretch it to once every 28 days. This is until the queen has her first workers. At this point you have a couple of options. What I'm doing with my queen, specifically because of my needs of having to have her in a nest, it's easier for my missus to help. I am using the AntBoy Elite Messor series nest. Now this nest has been specifically designed for Messor species, for species that are harvester ants that store grains and seeds as part of their diet. The chambers are small, and if you actually look at the size of them, it's not much different than the size being offered by the test tube. The only difference is these chambers and nest allow me to have greater control over their environment and to be able to see and care for the seeds properly. It's difficult with Messors when you're using test tubes to stop the seeds from germinating because they only have the dry end at the cotton stalk, and it's very easy for the seeds to roll down and get into the hydrated section near the water reservoir and start to germinate, which can cause various problems for a foundling colony. This nest perfectly caters for the fact that the queen can now be disturbed as little as possible, offering me both a red acrylic cover and a full blackout cover if I just wanted to leave the queen in darkness. What I do is what you see here is often I do what I call the double stack. I have the red layer of acrylic set into the nest and I simply place the black layer on top to use it as sort of a complete blackout cover. Another great feature of this size of the Messor nest is it has two hydration ports, which means I can alternate hydrate each port if I want to, or I can hydrate both of them depending on the requirements that I need, and which gives me greater control over the keeping of the species, because once I read the nest and I can see sort of how humid it is, I can then decide on where and how I want to hydrate to provide best care for both the ants and their seed stores. I've always kept my Messor colonies at 25 degrees Celsius, but anywhere between 21 to 26 degrees Celsius is fine during the summer, and if they hibernate then don't go any lower than 15 degrees Celsius for hibernation in the winter. The nest humidity wants to be between 50 to 70% for the brood and bred chambers, but only 10 to 50% for the seed storage chambers. That's to try and prevent them from germinating within the nest, which means they will sprout and the plant will try to grow. While I'm on the subject of hibernation, I just want to stress that in some locations that this species is found, they do not hibernate, and in other locations they're found they hibernate. This is purely due to the weather that they are accustomed to in those regions that they exist. This species does not biologically need or require hibernation, so if your colony chooses not to hibernate, please don't force them into hibernation. If your colony stops taking food in the winter and tries to hibernate, then of course aid their hibernation and allow them to do so. Now that the nest has been prepared, it's time to hook them up to their brand new nest so they can check it out and decide whether they want to move in. Actually, I'll say now, it only took them 20 minutes in total to move the entire colony from the test tube into the nest, so they must have decided that the conditions within the nest were quite favourable to them. Most ant keepers will tell you that moving a colony can often be a long and tedious operation, taking days, weeks, even months for some colonies to move from their test tubes. I said at the beginning that at this point you had a couple of options. when it came to your queen having her first workers. You could always do a tubs and tubes setup, or you could simply hook up the test tube to a foraging area, a container where the workers can come out and collect the seeds, and this way you don't need to keep using and picking up the test tube or disturbing the queen, because every time you do that it almost resets your progress of where you've got to with the colony due to their stress. Also, this species will eat their brood if they are overly stressed. It's a survival tactic because the brood is valuable protein. If they feel that they're being nest raided or they're going to lose it, they will just consume their brood, and this can happen if they're stressed or shocked. This really is a species where patience reaps what you sow. That extra patience in the beginning gives you so much more enjoyment as the colony starts to grow, as they become more resilient to light, noise and sound. Because there's more and more workers, they feel safer as a larger colony and you have less problems like that. So trust me, when you see your first major will be such an incredible experience that checking on your queen every day in the beginning is worth sacrificing. As sadly, the fact is, the more you check on the queen, the more likely you are to have failure with the colony and for them to die or not be successful. I took a lot into consideration when balancing out the early stage of this colony, the nest and sort of my own personal needs. This is my colony beside my other Messor colony that you can see just there on the shelf, and I'm going to just give them a quick seed mix. They've already got a water feeder, and that's just a quick shot of sugar water just in case they're interested. Sugar water is hit or miss with the species, so let's get into the Messor Barbarus seed, grain and nut list. You might want to take a screenshot, or you can jump into the link down below which will take you to my website and the written description. I would say start with grass seed, chia seed, dandelion seed, sesame seed and millet, hemp seed, small seeds. Pre-crush them when you give them to your colony. This will make it easier for them before they have majors. Other sources of protein that I've given them are as listed: dubia roach, Madagascar hissing roach, waxworms, mealworms, moths, house spiders, cooked chicken and cooked prawns. Always pre-kill and boil feeder insects. Chop them up for the species before they have majors, and don't live feed. Really, they're scavengers, they're not hunters. Although they are adept at taking down insects, it's not fair on the colony and it will stress them out. Once they have majors, it's pretty awesome watching them chop up the carcass anyway. Just to note, it's important with Messor Barbarus to always have fresh water on offer. I always have fresh water feeders within my setups. It's important due to the process of them making bread from the seed. They require a lot of fresh water to do this. I would say out of all the species that I keep, Messor Barbarus actually consumed the most amount of water in a 24-hour period compared to any other colony. They normally consume 2 10mm feeders. Don't forget to check out my other guides on Messor Barbarus. I made them quite early on into my channel, which they should be popping up on the screen somewhere around now, so either here or there. I can't ever see this species losing popularity due to its bright coloration with the deep red heads and the dark bodies. This is seen on the queens, some of the media workers and most of the majors. Also, their size difference between the polymorphism, so the large majors right the way down to the small minor workers, and how they react and how each one does a different role. As you can see here, there's a major worker harvesting the limbs of a carcass to take back to the nest to be able to provide protein to the larvae. The larvae will consume directly from the piece of carcass that they bring in, and then they will remove that, or they may feed the larvae through trophallaxis. Only the queen and the larvae consume protein, although I'm actually trying to get a better understanding of the Messors' diet, considering they eat seeds and whether they are like most species where they need carbohydrate. Messor Barbarus colonies can have up to 10,000 workers, making them quite an interesting species to keep because they don't grow too large that they're unmanageable, but they certainly grow large enough that they become interesting, and they do require a sort of medium to large setup depending on the colony size. On average, I found that queens were reported to live between 5 and 15 years, although some reports stated that they had queens living up to 25 years. So let's get down to the fun stuff. I said I got my queen from Ants Davey. Well, Ants Davey actually ran a sale selling queens for £3.50, and I got in contact with him and was like, yo bro, I want to grab some queens. At the same time, I put a post out saying that, hey, Ants Davey's got some queens for £3.50, and Mr. Ted Hughes gets and goes, hey, I'm so tempted. And so was I. So we both ended up getting a colony at the same time. So one of these queens I'm keeping for myself. However, 3 of these queens have been kindly gifted by Ants Davey to be given away to you guys. So whether you answered that question, you got it right, you got it wrong, or you just left a general comment on this video, perhaps shared it on your page with a friend just to help us out. And of course, if you haven't already, please drop that subscribe button, because it massively helps the channel to grow and be found by other people to enjoy this content. So in the next episode, I will be announcing the winners from the comments. It's not going to be like the Untitled Chapter competition. I actually put a blog post out about that, which will be linked in the description, so please check out that and see where that's at. I will just be announcing the winners at random. Please get in contact with me and I'll have these queens sent out to you 110%. And thank you very much, Ants Davey, for this kind contribution to the community. So this is me, until next time, the Colonialist, signing out. I hope that you enjoyed the ultimate care guide to raising Messors, and I'll see you in the next episode.